Recently, we heard that Earl Jones signed over his rights AI to recreate Darth Vader's voice. If Jones had
hmm
signed over his rights to recreate Mufasa's voice, would you have used it for AI?
No, no, I wouldn't have.
First and foremost, Mr. Jenkins, Frat, so proud of you, man. Just thank you. I just want to thank you so much, man.
Thank you, bro. Thank you, bro.
So my first question, I want to know, really a conversation for directors, right? You've
Mhm.
spent like 4 years with Mufasa, three, four
Yep,
years.
yep, pretty much. Yep.
What does that kind of long-term commitment mean for a director, both creatively and personally?
Uh, Personally, it's kind of freeing. As far as the rest of your life, when you're on set directing, nothing, nothing truly can come between you and the work that you're doing. You have to be like 24 hours, just like on. It's a really intense process. When that process is spread over 4 years, you're almost like you're altering your heartbeat, as opposed to that thing racing all the time. The best way to do this is to sort of stay even killed. Because of that, more of your actual personal life, can be a part of your daily life. So that's a very simple version. Um, on the flip side, from a filmmaking standpoint, it was really cool because we also produce. And so, in the span of making this film, we've also produced After Sun, All Dirt Roads, Taste of Salt, a season of True Detective, and this movie Sorry Baby that's going to premiere at Sundance next month. And so it was kind of dope to be able to like have my thing, but then have all these other things. And then the last part of it is you really get to sort of see every single element of the film from 30,000 feet. Now it's tricky for me because I don't want to control every element of a movie, but when you have this much time to make it, there's no doubt that, you have the ability to touch every single element of the film.
Awesome, awesome. In interview I was reading, you said if you kind of stripped, Mufasa, the movie, the characters, and just really told the story, someone could actually that you were talking about Moonlight. I wanted to know if you could talk a little bit about the parallels between the two films, and then
Mhm.
also, was that like a comfort for you when you read the story?
It was a comfort for me for sure, because there were certain scenes in this film. Again, the technology can start to get in the way if you let it. The scale of the story can get in the way if you let it. And so it's always good to break things down to the simplest. I mean, the simplest, most sort of like just the sharpest versions of themselves. And so for me, it's like, okay, you have this movie about this guy, who feels like he is less than, who feels like in a certain way the world, it's just hell bent, on keeping him at the margin. And he has to somehow build a community that is going to help him see all the qualities that he does possess, that is going to help him acquire, all these qualities to achieve self-actualization. Those things are happening over the three axis moonlight, and they're also happening, which is crazy, over the story of this movie with these talking lions. And we know that he does acquire all these skills because we've seen it, in the original movie. And so, how do you then do that scene to scene, beat to beat? I think being able to understand, well, I've done that before. I know exactly what that looks and feels like. It was a comfort because then all these other elements, all the technology, that's just meant to serve this very simple thing.
So it was a beautiful tribute to James Earl Jones. I know that you had used like his past performance and kind of
Mhm.
incorporated it in there. So much so I was like, wait, what happened here? What I was trying to get the timeline in my head when I was listening to when I
Mhm.
was watching it. So recently we heard that Earl Jones signed over his rights AI to recreate Darth Vader's voice. If Jones had
Mhm.
signed over his rights to recreate Mufasa's voice, would you have used it for AI?
No, no, I wouldn't have, and I'm glad you raised the question because we obviously didn't.
Okay.
No, I wanted the voice that one audiences are connected to. You know, I wanted to take because I, especially making this movie where we're recontextualizing who this character is, and yet it still is that character. And so I wanted to take the actual performance that we know, the thing that's actually moved us, and just remind us, you know, of that quality. Because again, you're about to go into a story where we're recontextualizing. We all assumed, oh, he's descendant. You know, there were 8 kings before him, and he is the great, 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 great grandson. And it's like, no, you know, he is a cat from the wrong side of the tracks who sort of lost everything and is living on the margins. And then because he received this wonderful parenting from a foster mother in the character of Eshe, because he listens to the teaching his ancestors have to tell him, you know, in the form of Rafiki, he builds and acquires all these qualities and becomes the king. But this is the same person. And so, no, I wouldn't have used AI, and I wouldn't have had to because the performance is so dope. And we're not trying to recreate something or create something new. We were trying to just remind you of exactly who this character is.
Love that. Love that. And then my last question for you. I always wanted a brother is my favorite from
Mm-hmm.
the songs. I want to know just kind of what went into, kind of work putting that together and then working with Lin-Manuel to make sure
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of received.
Yeah, yeah. So Lynn, typically in a musical, the songs come first, and then the movie kind of folds around it. But in this case, because Lynn was so busy making Tick Tick Boom and Kanto, we actually started making the movie first. And I really loved that process because then the songs they had to arise organically from the story, and they had to really sort of like service the narrative and not distract from it. And that line at the end of the race where Taki says, I always wanted a brother. It was in the first version of the film that Lynn watched. And right away he said, oh, that's the song. You know, that really is it. Especially because it's like, how crazy is it that we know where Scar and Mufasa end up, and yet Scar wanted him in his life? That's how this whole thing happened. And so it was really dope. All the songs sort of came about like in that way. And then for me, as a filmmaker, it was really nice taking this story that looks to some degree photorealistic and is very grounded. But then you get to lean in some of the magic of Disney whenever the songs are on screen. So I had a really great time with it.
Yeah.